Hey again, everybody. This is E. Marcel Pertut. Hope you're doing well today. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. We're recording our broadcast on December 16th, 2020, about a week and a half away from Christmas. And a happy holidays to all of you listening to the show, whether you're Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, any other denomination, no holiday I'm not thinking of, or just happy times overall. I hope everyone is safe out there doing well. And towards the end of the calendar year, that's a celebration in itself for many. But yeah, just trying to get everything done and everything organized. We have an active and full schedule of events, which we're going to go over throughout the show, and you'll kind of hear what I've been doing over the past few weeks. But as always, want to follow everything that we're doing on today's broadcast, you can head to thesportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can also go to our social media platforms, starting with our Twitter and Instagram pages. Search Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. You do a search of that and you'll see our items. You also go to our Facebook pages, which are, we have two of them. First one is the Sports Inquirer, and the second one is Sports Inquirer. You can search either one of those on Facebook and you'll see what we're doing. Just like us on there, or follow us. And find, subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. Search the Sports Inquirer, similar deal, and you'll will pop up, and you can still see everything that we have going on. The past few weeks have not done a show in a while. I've been very active for my job. I have several jobs, but one's been really busy as far as the holidays. And so that's been going on. But sports is still taking place. And on today's broadcast, we'll break down the NFL in our Gridiron Blitz. We'll recap the previous week of action. And then we'll transition into the original free kick. Atlanta United's year is not done. Their MLS season concluded a while ago, but they still have the CONCACAF Champions League quarterfinal matchup, or the second leg of it, coming up tonight. We'll preview that. And finally, we'll go into technical state of Georgia athletics. Georgia State football made some big news over the past week. Georgia State men's basketball, Georgia Tech basketball. We'll touch on all those things around college sports. But let's go into the NFL in the Gridiron Blitz. And we're starting to see the playoff picture really round into form with everything going on. But as always, or if you've been listening to our show over the past few weeks, the biggest theme I've taken away from this season overall are the amount of comebacks that we've seen in contest. The Green Bay Packers, they overcame a deficit in, actually, no, they did not overcome a deficit. We'll start with the Chiefs. The Chiefs overcame a 10-point deficit to defeat Miami, 33 to 27. It's their fifth consecutive AFC West championship, but it was the 39th time that a team has overcame a deficit of at least 10 points to win this season, and it's the most through week 14 in NFL history. As we've stated before, a lot of factors go into that. Even at week 14, I still don't think these guys, and it's not their fault, with everything going on, I still don't think their training and conditioning is up to par of where it should be. So you're seeing teams jump out to big leads and not being able to sustain them. You're also seeing, just the lack of adjustments. And that goes with, I think, the lack of a consistent week of training. And I know they say that they're practicing and they're in the film room and everything like that, but I'm sure whatever occupation you have or your family lifestyle, you've had to adjust with, as far as seeing people and not being able to have much person to person contact as much as we normally do. And that's the same deal with football teams. And those guys aren't able to get proper preparation. And they're professionals. I mean, so they're still going out there competing and doing what they have to do, but it's still not the same. And I think you add all that together, that's why you're seeing some struggles with teams trying to hold on to leads. Let's see. So I mentioned Green Bay. We'll go to some of the division news. The Packers, they defeated Detroit 31-24. So they've won the NFC North for the second consecutive season. And combined with New Orleans' loss at Philadelphia, you have to say the Packers have a pretty good track to get the first place in the NFC. And the biggest thing this year in the playoffs, the change, is there's an additional playoff team. So instead of your traditional 6 teams, there are going to be 7. But that first overall seed gets the only team in that conference that gets a bye. So right now you're looking at Green Bay. They have the tiebreaker over New Orleans. They're the only team that's going to receive a bye at this stage. That's a very big factor. And then when you add in the element of Green Bay, speaking of elements, playing in a cold weather, windy conditions. We know New Orleans has been historically up and down or inconsistent playing outdoors later on in the season. And so you have to look at that factor. And I know and now granted, Lambeau's not going to be completely packed and the atmosphere is not the same, but that rain and sleet and snow and wind, that stays the same. That's not changing at all. When we've seen the Saints make their best playoff runs, they majority of time they've been able to do it at home. So you have to look at it. I know they lost a few years ago to the Rams in the NFC Championship game. We're very aware of that. But you look at that factor, that's going to be pretty significant getting a bye. And I said Pittsburgh, so they clinched a playoff berth with Miami's loss on Sunday. So now they have uh, so they're now going to be in position to get a top seed as well. Even though well, Kansas City, they're peaking as well right now. So you add all of that up, that'd be very interesting to see what happens with the Steelers. But what I wanted to say with that stat, don't get to some individual superlatives. The Steelers missed the playoffs last season, and as I said, clinching the division, they actually haven't clinched the division yet technically. Baltimore and Cleveland is still hanging around, but they're in the playoffs. And since the divisional, let's see, the I'm gonna start. Let me figure this out because I'm reading my notes here. Each of the past 42 seasons, from 1977 to 2019, when divisional play started taking place in the playoffs, excluding 1982, which was the strike year, at least one team has won its division the season after missing the playoffs. So that goes into the parity of the league that they like to talk about and they like to promote. You see it in action there. Some individual takeaways from this past Sunday. I look at Kansas City and they're not unbeatable. We've already seen them lose earlier this year at home, no less to the Raiders. But it's going to be very, very tough for any squad, I think, to beat them in the postseason. You look at that contest against Miami. I watched the whole thing. Pat Mahomes had 2 turnovers, had 3 interceptions, but 2 of them in the first quarter. They were behind 10-0, and you think this might be a time for the Chiefs to struggle. They still were able to find a way to win the contest. And Mahomes, 393 passing yards. Tyreek Hill had 2 TDs. Travis Kelsey had 2 touchdowns. We had 1 touchdown catch. And you just look at all of the numbers, and their defense does have some leakage to it because they let Miami work their way back into the contest. And that's where you worry about Kansas City. Well, think about Kansas City. You're going to have to score at least 30 to beat them. Because even on a bad day, they're going to get to their 30 points. But their defense can allow 35 points, and that's definitely an issue with them. But I think overall, and some saying they're bored or they're fatigued, and I think some of that does come into play. It's rare that you can make a cross sport comparison, but they really are like the Golden State Warriors when they're at their peak with Curry and Klay Thompson, and when Kevin Durant was there as well. And they would just go through the motions sometimes. They would lose 2 games in a week, and people are like, "Oh, the Warriors, what's going on? Is the dynasty over?" And no, they would just turn it on and find a way to win championships and make a run. I think you're seeing that a little bit with the Chiefs right now. You rarely see it in the NFL because football is such a team sport. Where in basketball, it's very individual. It's a team sport too. But when I talk about the Warriors, Curry can go off for 35 points one game, or Durant or Klay Thompson, and carry the team, for a week or two, and just individually take over. And that's what made that team so special, one of the greatest of all time. You had 3 guys who were prolific scorers and could take over. Excuse me. In the NFL, and you can have a quarterback like Mahomes, who's brilliant. But if your offensive line isn't playing well, or The defensive line is struggling, or your secondary is giving up a lot of points. It's very tough to everyone turn it on at the same time. There's too many bodies. But the Chiefs seem to find a way, to do that. But yeah, once again, Mahomes, he's going to pass for 5,000 yards again this season. You have Travis Kelsey, who may be the first tight end ever to lead the league in receiving yards. And that the crazy part is he has Tyreek Hill with him, who's probably be top 4 or 5 in receiving yards himself. So when you add those elements all together, it is a special group going on. I looked at Russell Wilson from Seattle. He had 4 touchdown passes in a victory over the Jets. The Jets they defeated New York 40-3. So he has 15 career games with at least 4 TD passes. So he ties Peyton Manning for the second most over his first 9 years in the league. Dan Marino has 16. So he's only one away. Wilson could definitely reach that mark at some point this season. So you're seeing the superlatives is there with him. And you see, I think Seattle, they're one of those teams that we're starting to forget about a little bit because we talk about New Orleans so much, and rightfully so. I know they had a hiccup against Philadelphia, but they've been the best team in the NFL the past, I'll say, 2 months. Kansas City and Pittsburgh kind of right there. And Green Bay, they've kind of gone on the radar too, but still have Aaron Rodgers, and so they get a lot of attention. But we saw Seattle in the very beginning of the year, Russell Wilson throwing for a lot of yardage, but then it turned around and started turning the ball over quite a bit. So now they kind of have recalibrated themselves. And what you're seeing now is a team that's more balanced and getting more better running play from their offense. And that opens up things for Wilson. I mean, he's throwing 4 touchdowns against the Jets. I know New York's a professional team, but at this stage, they're just playing the clock out and trying to draft Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. I don't know. They're going to probably go with Trevor Lawrence. That's the guy who's been touted as the best prospect in probably a decade. They're going to go with him. But still, impressive effort by him overall. I was able to watch a decent amount of the Chargers game against the Falcons because we're based here in Atlanta, Georgia. I like what I saw from Justin Herbert: 243 passing yards, 2 TDs in the victory. He has 25 touchdown passes so far this season. So he's the fourth rookie in NFL history with at least 25 TD passes. And most is Baker Mayfield. He had 27 TD passes back in 2018. Herbert has 3 games left. I think he can surpass that mark. The other guys who have 25 or more, Peyton Manning and Russell Wilson, each had 26 in their rookie campaigns. So that was a very good effort by him. Matt Ryan, look, I'm not going to say it's over. We're going to break this down a lot more when we do our preview of the upcoming contest later on in another show. But look, he's going to get the jersey retirement in Atlanta. He's the best quarterback ever to play for the franchise. He'll, I said, he'll get the red jacket. I think that's what they do with the Falcons, the Ring of Honor. He'll get his number retired. You'll have a ceremony. I said, he's probably maybe the greatest player in history of the franchise. I know Deion Sanders and played for the team, but he was a shorter tenure. Much love to Tommy Nobis and Jesse Tuggle and those guys. That's another conversation. I can break down the Falcons for hours because we've been living here close to 10 years now. We've seen a lot of Falcon play, but he's going to have all those accolades. But it's time for the Falcons to move on, and they're not going to be able to. Unfortunately, I think because of the salary cap ramifications. But it is time for them to look at another direction at quarterback. And I'm not saying Ryan's career is over. He can play somewhere else, but he's not going to win here, be successful with the Falcons. They need to turn the page on the entire franchise. And Julio Jones in the same book, similar to Ryan. I said Ryan may be the greatest player of all time. Julio might have an argument there as well. He'll get his jersey retired. He'll have all the ceremonies and accolades as well. He might even get a gold jacket in Cannes. He might have all of that happen, but it's time for that franchise to turn the page completely from everybody. Everybody can go, in my opinion. And I think what the problem is for the Falcons is that they have a history of not winning. So and then Ryan and Julio Jones represents the best era in history of this franchise by a wide margin. And I know you're saying, well, that's only one Super Bowl appearance, and I know they lost the bleed to the Patriots 28-3. That's still a high watermark for this franchise. Look at the 1980s and even the early 70s. And I know they had the grit splits in the late 70s and made a little bit of run there. And I know the early 90s had some moments. In '98, they made Super Bowl appearance. I get all that stuff, but if you look at the history of that franchise, it is very, very bad. So you're turning your back. If what I'm saying right now, you're turning your back on the most successful era in history of this franchise, and for a fan base that has endured a lot of 3 and 4 win seasons, they're going to probably have that right now too. But there's not much hope keeping this band together. And watching that contest and seeing that late interception by Ryan, and that led to the game-winning field goals for the Chargers, I saw that reality right in front of my TV. And as I said, I think it's just time for that entire franchise to move on, turn the page, and just go another direction. I like what I saw from Jalen Hurts, rookie quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, in their win over the Saints. Philadelphia won 24-21. Hurts 167 passing yards, had 1 touchdown, also rushed for 106 yards. So he had more than 100 rushing yards in his first NFL career start. Only Lamar Jackson did that in his career as a rookie. So that's a very good mark for Jalen Hurts. Look, he's not going to be a Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers throwing for 300 plus yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns and everything like that. That's not going to be his game, at least right now. He might develop into that. We don't know. But he does provide some mobility at that quarterback position for an offensive line that's not very good. He can extend plays and keep the ball moving. You saw Carson Wentz. His biggest issue was holding the ball too long. Now I know that the offensive line is not very good in weapons. The receivers were struggling to get separation. But when you have all that stuff, at least with Jalen Hurts, he'll get rid of the ball and throw it away, or at least make a quick read. I think what you saw from Doug Peterson and that coaching staff, what they told Hurts, first read, if you see it, throw it. If not, tuck the ball in, and run. And that's not going to work for an entire regular season. But for the next few games, I think it can, and we'll see what happens there. And I don't mind them benching him at all. And that's where some were saying with Wentz, he's owed so much money, he's going to be untradeable. I don't think he's going to be untradeable. Obviously, you're not going to get a lot of good value because that is a lot of money, guaranteed money for a quarterback that may be broken. But there's always one guy in the league, whether it's Frank Reich in an Indy or whoever is head coach of Jacksonville, maybe even I said the Jets with Trevor Lawrence. That's not going to happen. But maybe if Detroit moves on from Matthew Stafford, or you just look down the line, or maybe Jimmy Garoppolo has his tenure end in San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan out there, even a Bill Belichick, because Cam Newton's not guaranteed that job by any means. There's going to be one guy out there that's going to see Carson Wentz, a very physically gifted, talented quarterback, who a few years ago was playing at an MVP level before his knee injury, and say, look, in Philadelphia, he was never going to get that job in that locker room back. I don't care what Kelsey and Peters say. Their players saying that we love Carson Wentz, and that's just talk because they have to support their veteran and that's their teammate. I get all of that. But when you look at Wentz, and there's going to be one of these quarterback people, and they're going to say, I can work with that and I can turn that around. It's just not going to be in Philadelphia. I just don't think that's going to be tenable. But to see it for Philadelphia to make that move, they have to see what they have in Jalen Hurts. And this is a smart move. Now, 4 games is not an indication of an entire career. It's a small sample size, but at least you get an idea of what you're working with. So that if you do decide to move on from Wentz, you know what you have in Hurts. Now, Hurts might crash and burn the next few weeks, and then you can say, okay, he's not ready. Let's bring Wentz back and try to figure it out. Or maybe just bring in a new coach or something. But the point is, there was no point of having Wentz play out the rest of the season at the rate he was doing. And so I thought that was a smart move by Philadelphia, and they were rewarded, at least for a week, with the win over the Saints. Derrick Henry, 215 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in their win over Jacksonville. Man, this is a very interesting statistic I saw from him. First player in NFL history with 4 career games, at least 200 rushing yards and 2 touchdown rushes. So, first guy to have 4 career games where he had 200 rushing yards or more and 2 rushing TDs. I thought it was a very surprising, all of great running backs history of the league, and I'm about to name some in a moment that had never reached that mark. So now through the first, actually through his entire career, he now has 7 career games with at least 170 rushing yards and 2 TDs. So he ties Eric Dickerson with 7 games with the third most in NFL history. Only other guys to do that, Hall of Famers LaDainian Tomlinson, who has 11 of those games, and Jim Brown with 9. So those may be some of those are arguably the top 2 3 running backs history of the NFL. He talked to a lot of people. So for him to reach that mark is tremendous for him and his career. Tennessee's an interesting squad because he can get if he gets going, they're very, very tough to stop. Now they're limited offensively. I know they got those the weapons have improved as far as their receivers with Brown and some others, but it is still a group that if they get ahead in a contest, we saw this against Baltimore last year and Tennessee in the postseason. If they get a lead of 7 to 10 points and they can run Henry and control the clock, they're a very tough team to come back against. Now, Kansas City fell behind an AFC Championship game and were able to get the victory, but Chiefs are just at a different level. But that I wouldn't bet on that happening too often, though. So if the Titans find their way into the playoffs, and it's still tricky right now, they are going to be a very, very interesting squad to check out. And let's see, I want to wrap up some of my notes here. I talked about Matt Ryan and went into all of that stuff. Very Washington wanted to mention the football team in our nation's capital, and the Giants were less great. Now the Giants lost to Arizona. I think their postseason chances are, I shouldn't say they're over. That it seems like every team is still in the NFC East, but that was a really bad loss against the Cardinals. And Daniel Jones has to figure something out with fumbling the ball so much. You would think quarterbacks interceptions will get you. Does throw a lot of interceptions at times, but it's just he gets sacked and he fumbles the ball. Seems like every sack the ball is on the ground. He really has to figure ball protection and get that going. But back to Washington, I look at that squad as a team that's kind of similar to Tennessee in that if they get a lead, they're gonna be very tough to beat. I say tough. No, I'm saying unbeatable. I don't want to put them as a championship contender for a Super Bowl. But when you have that front seven, especially with Sweats and Chase Young, who is going to be the runaway rookie of the year, at least on the defensive side of the ball, when you have those studs as your defensive linemen and a solid linebacker group, you can control games. And when you see what that Chase Young contest, going back to coverage, covering receivers, he did one play where he was doing like a zone coverage. He stepped back and then did a 10-yard sprint to the quarterback and a sack, all in about 2 3 seconds. That was ridiculous. Then the scoop and score. I mean, that is a humongous human being to outrun the entire team. I mean, he is a special talent, and you're just seeing him emerge as a major player in the league. But when you have, and their offense is limited. Yeah, Alex Smith, he's dealing with leg issues. It's the same leg that obviously he broke and had all those surgeries on. I don't think it's not as severe as that, but when you're dealing with calf injuries and you said it was been bleeding and all that other stuff, I mean that leg has been through so much trauma. You worry about how long it can hold up in general. But I think Washington, though, as I said, if they find a way to get a lead, they can control the line of scrimmage, and they'll be a tough out, I think, for a lot of teams in the league. All right, let's move on to the original free kick and discuss Atlanta United. We haven't talked about the Five Stripes in a long time because they've been off for a minute. They didn't make the postseason of the MLS and they didn't make the playoffs, but they still have to play the return leg of the Socia Bank Champions League. And that takes place today in Florida in the quarterfinals. They trail Club America 3-0 after the first leg, which was played back in March. So Atlanta has to find a way to get 3 goals to tie it, and they have to find a way to well, they got to score more than three to advance, but they score three, at least they'll tie the contest, and they can maybe go to extra kicks and think extra time and penalty kicks and stuff like that. But they've beaten Club America before. If you remember, they won the Campeones Cup 3-2 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium last summer. So they're 2-2 all time against Liga MX teams. They beat Monterrey in the Champions League 2 years ago. Yes. So they have had some success against Mexican squads. Here's Stephen Glass previewing the contest to the media yesterday.
We've got to try and win the game. Don't think we concern ourselves that it's 3-0. We know it's a very, very tough battle. I think if we get ourselves in the mindset, can we win the game? If we get ourselves in a position that late in there we do have an opportunity to go through in the tie, then obviously that becomes the aim, the overriding aim. But I think it's step by step and we try and win the game initially. So if we can score the first goal, try and set ourselves up and make it interesting. The lads obviously got a little bit of time off after the final MLS game, so that's part of their CBA, so we had to obviously recognise that while trying to prepare as best as we can for this game. Then you lose a few players with options not getting taken up. In terms of the preparation from there, we've been getting a motivated group, keeping them upbeat, showing them bits and pieces where we believe that we can get at America, obviously showing their dangers as well. And then with Eric's a player that obviously there's a lot of staff at the club worked very hard to bring him in. A lot of people showing a lot of belief in him. And there will be an opportunity for a lot of people to see Eric playing in the game on tomorrow night. We know how difficult a game is against Club America anytime. We know that if you're sitting in Club America's shoes and you are 3-0 up, you fancy yourselves to go through. So we know it's a difficult task to go through. Nothing's impossible in football. You've seen results get turned round in second halves of games where it's 3-0. We've obviously got 90 minutes, but we're well aware of how good Club America are. And like I said, we're going to try and win the game, and then we'll see where it gets us. If it's 1-0, if it's 2-0, 3-0. Regardless, we've got to try and win the game, restore a little bit of pride. Obviously, the team went to Mexico City, lost 3-0 with the previous manager in place, and we got to show that there's been improvement since that time. So I think that's the aim, that's the motivation for the group, and I think you'll see that from the group tomorrow night.
And that was Stephen Glass previewing the contest for the Atlanta United. As I mentioned, they defeated Monterrey in the second leg of the quarterfinals in last season's Champions League. But they lost in aggregate in that competition. But here's Brad Guzan discussing the team coming back to playing and trying to put together a respectable effort in the Champions League.
Yeah, of course it's a challenge. In this competition, the teams that are left are all very good, and obviously the game Wednesday for us against America is a difficult one, just from the standpoint that they're a team with extremely good players. They're a massive club, and you then add in the result from the first leg. That's that kind of takes the cake in terms of the difficultness of the actual tie and of the game. I mean, listen, all of 2020 has been weird circumstances, and we've been having to adjust on the fly, adjust accordingly, and try and find ways to get results. So that part doesn't change, and whether it's played now or played in the spring, again, that just adds to what 2020 has been about, I guess. So from our standpoint, we knew it was going to be played at some point. We just didn't know when. And then when the official word came out, then all of our attention and focus obviously turned to preparing for the game.
All right, and that was Brad Guzan discussing that contest, and we'll be following it all tonight and give a recap on our next show. Move on to technical state of Georgia athletics and discussing college football. Georgia State has accepted its bowl invitation to the Lending Tree Bowl, which is scheduled for Saturday, December 26th in Mobile, Alabama. It's the day after Christmas. You opened up your gifts and you get to play some football. Then they're going to face Conference USA for Western Kentucky. It's the fourth bowl bid in 6 seasons for Georgia State. They ended the regular season on a very strong note with 3 wins in their last 4 games to finish with a record overall of 5-4, 4-4 in the Sun Belt Conference, including that victory at home against rival Georgia Southern in the regular season finale a few weeks ago. It's the second straight season that they've been in a bowl, and third time in 4 seasons under head coach Sean Elliott. And we were able to catch up with Coach Elliott and get his thoughts on the bowl invitation.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great day to be a Georgia State Panther. As you know, we got the invitation to go to the 2020 Lending Tree Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, against Western Kentucky. And what news it was! It was just an exciting time for our staff, our players, from everyone involved here to have an opportunity to go and compete with such an unusual season, to go out and have an opportunity to finish it up with a solid game against Western Kentucky. We're looking forward to the trip, and we're excited to start preparing and to really cap off what I think has been a pretty good season. When the name came up, Western Kentucky, I was like, that's kind of cool. Got our first bowl win against them back in 2017, and here we are in my 4th season and our staff's 4th season, having the opportunity to go back and kind of do it all over again. So we're hoping for the same results, but we're just thrilled to be in this bowl and have the opportunity to compete against a West. We're playing a football season. I don't understand why we would go through the trials and tribulations to play a season without not having an opportunity to cap it off in a bowl game. So, I think we're all excited to go and have this opportunity. I think it's thrilling for our program. We know how important it is to have these opportunities. So, no, never did we.
And that was Coach Elliott about the bowl, and is their second. They're looking for their second bowl victory in program history, and the first bowl victory came against the same Western Kentucky team in the 2017 AutoNation Cure Bowl down in Orlando, Florida. I remember that contest very well, and so they are trying to make that happen again. Moving on to Georgia State basketball, the Panthers are going to host Mercer. The undefeated Bears come into Atlanta for tonight's contest at 6 p.m. And the Panthers look for revenge in this contest because they lost in Macon to Mercer 86-69 last month. The Panthers have 12 days off since their last contest, which was a road win at Charlotte back in December 4th. And I was able to speak with Rob Lanier for an exclusive interview recapping that Charlotte contest, discussing Mercer, and highlighting some of his players, particularly Eliel Nsoseme, who we're going to talk to as well later on. But here's Coach Lanier about all things Georgia State basketball. All right, so Coach, I know you've had about a week off in between games before you face Mercer coming up. Now, was the team in finals, or was that just the way the scheduling worked out with everything that's going on?
Yeah, finals.
Those are finals, okay.
Yeah.
So what did you do this week to balance their finals and their academic commitments, as well as staying sharp with the long layoff on the court?
Yeah, we had 7 practices. Well, 6 so far. Seventh will be tomorrow. So we took 2 days off following the trip back from Charlotte, Saturday, Sunday, and then we had a light day on Tuesday. We took Wednesday off, and then we went Thursday, Friday, took Saturday off, and now we got 3 days of prep for the game. So we actually worked backwards from the Mercer game and basically said, all right, we'll start with 3 days of prep. And then we work back from there in terms of days off to manage their bodies, keep them engaged, and then not to overdo the prep stuff, and then obviously give them time to focus on their academics.
Was this the most time you've had on the court with them since you got back to the training camp in a most consistent time period of a few days? Because
we've actually had a couple of good weeks leading up to the season, unlike a lot of people. So, but the thing that has hurt us more than breaks in the schedule relative to COVID was injuries. Joe being out, Jalen being out, Nelson being out, and then some nicks and bruises. And then we've had guys miss some time for an exam or something academic related. But we haven't had in the couple of weeks leading up to the season and since, we haven't had guys miss due to COVID until today. It wasn't a positive test, but because we had someone experiencing what could be construed as symptoms, we took precaution and isolated that individual until we get test results this afternoon. And if the test is negative, then we're, business as usual. But something just came up this morning where we had a kid feeling, some symptomatic type stuff, and so we kicked him out. So
yeah, hopefully he's healthy.
Yeah, I think he's okay. But
it's just the way you said that was funny.
Yeah.
But do you work on that contingency plan as a staff that even not due to injury? I guess you do prepare for that, but in general, do you acknowledge that every single player could not be available at some point? Do you guys have a plan on the court, as far as preparing for them if they miss games and everything like that? Have you worked on those things?
I think, the uniqueness of this season is the fact that you have to be prepared, at least mentally, that those things can happen. It's not like you can sit here now and say, well, this is our COVID offense and defense that we're going to use. It's like if you wind up when you only got 8 guys, then you're going to have to make some adjustments accordingly when you get to those. In general, what you have to do is continue to build your identity, try to do the things that you plan on working on. And again, we had another guy miss practice. This is the second time because he had a family situation come up. Just a freak thing that happened at home that he had to tend to. So we've had a lot of that type of stuff come up that it's just been a weird year. We thought we would miss guys because of COVID, and we've missed guys for a lot of other stuff, legitimate stuff, but different stuff nonetheless.
Well, one guy that's been able to get on the court this year is Eliel Nsoseme. He has been on the court, the transfer into the program last year, had the red shirt, but he has really made his presence felt in the early portion of the year. What about him that led to him coming to the program, and what did you work on with him during his year off the court to get him ready to have a big contribution so far?
Well, you know how it is. You guys make a decision to transfer. There's a lot of that going on. But when I heard he was available, I was familiar with him right away because the year, my last year at Tennessee, we played Iowa in the second round of the NCAA tournament to advance to the Sweet 16. And it was my scout, the Iowa game. Well, we were going to play the winner of Iowa-Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. So I actually sat courtside and watched Ellie contribute in that game. So I was familiar with him because I watched that game pretty intently because we were preparing to play the winner. Mm-hmm. And so when he became available, there was an instant familiarity with his size, his motor, the way he approached the game, the fact that he was playing in NCAA tournament games, and he was playing in such a good program for such a great coach that we felt like he would bring a lot of positive qualities based on what we were trying to build. And then when we talked to Mick Cronin and the people at Cincinnati, the way they talked about this young man is just unbelievable. And now that we've been around him, I understand why. But just the love that everyone has for this young man who's been in contact with him is just phenomenal to hear. It's almost like this kid can't be really that good of a guy, But yeah, he checks all of those boxes. So, right away, there was a lot of momentum there. And we had a lot of times with transfers, you wind up watching a lot of film and trying to catch up. But the fact that I actually saw him in person made it easier to say, yeah, if we can get that guy, we got to do it. And then when you start doing your due diligence and you start looking for red flags and trying to find out where his character is and his work ethic and all of those things that are important to you. And man, he was, everything was checking out, and he was passing that test with such flying colors that he is everything that we want our program to be about. And so we thought that's what we were getting. And it turns out that he is exactly what we thought we were getting. So we're excited. He's still improving and growing, becoming a better free throw shooter. That was going to be a challenge for him. He's improved already. He's been inconsistent there, but you could see the difference from last year to this year. He's got to get more comfortable using his right hand around the basket. Sometimes he just goes to his comfort zone, but he's a guy who can affect games whether he's scoring or not, because he plays with such passion and intensity, and he's a great teammate.
Yeah, and how big is that for you in a conference like the Sun Belt? There's so many perimeter guys, but to have a guy with size in the interior, that's harder to find in the conference. So, how big will you think he'll be, especially when we get into conference play, to have a guy that you can get the ball into, can get you extra possessions, things like that from the interior?
Yeah, I think it's, there's great value to it. Especially, unfortunately losing Joe affects our depth, and not having Jalen affects our depth. But once we get Jalen back, that's something that we anticipate the two of those guys, and as JoJo and Ryan improve, and as Caleb, who's getting his feet wet as he improves. But Ellie, you kind of know what you're getting every game as it relates to effort and rebounding, his ability to take scouting report and apply it to the game, just his maturity. It's going to be big for us for sure.
And then lastly, you have Mercer coming up. You faced him earlier in the year. You suffered a defeat in Macon. What do you think the team's improved at or gotten better at since that contest? Because was that just a good barometer to see where you're at, and what do you anticipate in this upcoming contest against them in a really short turnaround?
Yeah, they're just a really, really good team and well coached, and they really challenge your defensive principles. It was really interesting that we would have both them and Mercer and Charlotte back-to-back games, because they both really test your defensive principles with their system. And you have to have a sustained, focused defensive effort, but you also have to have a competent offensive attack, because we were the equivalent of a football team whose defense is pretty good, but they spent too much time on the field because the offense was either turning it over, throwing an interception, or 3 and out. And that's what we were doing offensively. They didn't really have to guard us very much because we were just all over the place. And then we go down to the other end and we got our hands full. And, so I think if nothing more, we at least learned what that means, what that looks like, that concept of the relationship between offense and defense. We certainly want to play at a fast pace. We want to take the first good shot, but not just the first shot. And sometimes I think in that game we lost sight of that. And they're a team that I think, they turned it over quite a bit against Georgia Southern, but Georgia Southern presents some different challenges. They're the kind of team that won't beat themselves by and large. You're actually going to have to beat them. So it's a great challenge for us to see exactly how much we've learned.
Okay. And now it's Coach Lanier discussing everything that under the sun about Georgia State basketball right now. The Panthers they entered the contest averaging 93.2 points per contest, which is 7th in the NCAA. A big contributor for that has been redshirt junior Nsoseme. I call him Eli. I won't call him Eliel, but he goes by Ellie as well. But we call him Ellie. That's what the coach is, and he goes by, so we'll call him Ellie. But Ellie, who is averaging 13.3 points, 8.8 rebounds per contest, and he was also fourth in the nation with offensive rebounds per contest. We were able to speak with him for an exclusive interview. A similar deal about everything going on with the program. Him transferring from Cincinnati to Georgia State. And then finally, his journey from Congo to Canada into the United States. He had a very interesting path to Atlanta, and we broke it all down in our interview. Check it out. Okay, so yeah. All right, so Ellie, the team has played a few games so far this year. You're back on the court. Just overall impressions of how the season's been going so far.
It's been going good. I think that we have a good team, and then everybody always bring something on the table. And then so far, it's really good. View the condition that's going on with COVID and everything, but so far, like everybody's healthy, and then we do make sure that like everybody get tested, and then like so everybody do their job that they're supposed to do to make sure that we can play another game, and we always take one game at a time, like always.
And how's the team handling all of the testing and the different practice conditions? How's the team adjusting to this type of year?
Yeah, so I would say in the beginning it was a little bit tough because it was not used to it. Like I wear a mask every time, and like how to like stick that thing on your nose. But like now that like we kind of used to it, it's something that we do in the morning. It takes us like what 2 minutes every morning when we are testing, and then just like we just trying to do our best because we definitely want to play games. We definitely want to have a good season. So everybody just like we're doing their best, and then I think like we're doing a pretty good job.
How about you? How does it feel to be back on the court? You transferred into the program last year. You had to sit out, but now you're back playing. How does that feel?
Oh man, it's feel amazing. I remember talk to Coach Jarvis Hayes on the when we played Georgia Tech, and I was like, wow, this is just it's wonderful to be out there. It's been a tough year. Redshirt, be able to see on the bench, watch the game in a different perspective, and then I feel that like I grew a lot from that point until now, and then I'm just ready to help my team win, and then just do whatever the coaches want me to do, and then to make sure that like at the end of the day, we get a win, and then just bring it home.
Yeah, you've been a big contributor in the win, especially in Charlotte. You had led a team with I think double digits in rebounds. What is that? Do you see your role in the team in that? Help defensively and rebounding. Is that your biggest contribution? You believe?
Oh yeah, like always, I feel like always like defense, defense is defense win championship. Offense can win a game, but defense wins championship. So like always, it's always been my advantage. Like just play hard on defense, give everything, make sure that like I help my team. Like if I can help my team on offense, I will do the best I can. And then, but at the end of the day, my motor guys it's always high, and then on defense, I always like more alert, and then trying to make sure that I get enough rebound to help the team win.
But when you said you sat out last year with the transfer. What did you learn anything from that? What did you take from it? What did you take from it trying to carry it on to this year actually playing?
Oh yeah, a lot. First, I would say confidence. I believe that the coaches trust me enough to make me in the condition to be successful, and then to be a leader for the young guys and then for the team and all. So I gain a lot of confidence on myself, and then just like to make sure that like at the end of the day, no matter what condition I'm on, no matter like I'm not productive, and when I step on the court, I just like have to give everything because that game was taken away from me for a whole year, and then now that I have the chance to play, I have to go 100% every time.
Yeah, you've had an interesting journey to Georgia State. We'll start there. You played at another program, and you decided to transfer into Georgia State. What led to that transfer, and how's your time been in Atlanta so far overall?
Yeah. So like everybody, like people know, so I came from Canada. I signed with Cincinnati. Was a big, tough program. Like knows out their toughness, like defense wise and everything. And then played there 2 years, and then my coach who was there left, and then I just think that it was the best situation for me to be able to bring to another program to with another coaches. And then when I meet Coach Lanier, it was just like instinctively, like, because like I know his parkour, I know that he been in Tennessee, I know what he did, and then we just had to connect, and it was just awesome. So, and also my school wise, like Cincinnati, Atlanta, it's a big city, I'm
Mm.
majoring in film and media. So it's just like big time to me to be around here so I can like networking and then just like get better in school.
Yeah. So you want to? What do you said? You want to work in media, something along those lines? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm majoring in film and media, but I want to
Oh,
be a producer one day because I have a crazy story, and
yeah.
then
Go right ahead.
there's a lot of kids from me back in Congo that didn't have the chance to express
Hmm.
themselves. So I think being here, it's a blessing. Like always, I say I thank God for all these opportunities. So I want to be able to tell the story too, like go back home and tell the story to the whole world to just see where we came from, and then if we come here, it's not because we want to leave our country. It's just because we got more opportunity here than back home.
Yeah, well, Atlanta, you're in the perfect city for that. Now, you're from Congo.
So,
When did you go to Ontario? When did you make that move? How old were you?
so when I make that move, I was 18, 19. I left Congo, like that was my last year of
Oh, wow. Okay.
um, high school,
Yeah.
but I didn't finish, so I had to move. I moved to Ontario when I was 18, 19, and then I played 2 years there. It was tough with the cold and everything,
Yeah.
So, but I think that it was the best move. That I think that prepared me that like instead of coming straight up to the US, that process was just helped me to like adapt myself to like the rhythm, to like how fast the game is, and then I think that was a big help for me.
Yeah. And now you're acclimated into Georgia State, and you have Mercer coming up, a team that you lost to earlier in the season. So I'm sure you want to get your revenge, you get back. But what did you learn from that contest? Because that's been your only blemish so far this year. What did you take from that loss and try to get better at uh, for this contest?
Uh, we definitely didn't learn a lot. We definitely didn't learn a lot. And then like always, coach talk about it's about us. I feel like at that game we beat ourselves. We didn't do like that what the coach asked us to do. The scouting report and everything else. So we learned that like we need to be more sharp. We need to lock in on offense. We need to move the ball a lot because like that's how we play. Like it's not a one person game. No, we just have to move the ball. We need to make sure everybody touch it, and then we have to just be locking on defense. They run a lot of set, and then we just have to be alert. We have to communicate every time we're on the court to make sure that like we lock in on D, and then we bring this home.
All right, and thanks for Ellie and also Coach Lanier for speaking with us and giving us their time. And I thought that was very interesting hearing his path into the United States and him wanting to. He says he wants to get into the entertainment industry. He picked the right city in Atlanta. I'm sure there's a Tyler Perry production or studio project that he can be involved in. So he made the right choice coming to Atlanta, or maybe he can do something with The Walking Dead when they film down in South Georgia. We have a lot of production here in Atlanta, is what I'm trying to say. But very, very thankful that he spoke with us, and a very good young man. And he's having a really good year on the court as well, giving the Panthers some very needed inside presence that they have been struggled with in the past, but he's been playing really well. And that concludes today's show. Thanks for listening to our broadcast. As always, you want to follow everything that we're doing, head to the mothership, thesportsinquirer.net. And that's where you'll see all of our social media platform links and all of our archived interviews and podcasts. You could Twitter and Instagram, Sports Inquirer, all one word. Just do a search on there. And then finally, subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. Until next time, good fight, good night, be safe.